Today I'm going to be interviewing Pete Farrugia. Morning.
Good morning, Vic.
How are you, mate?
Yes, I'm very well today, thank you. Yes,
Good.
all alone here in my teaching studio.
It looks very good there. I always like to sort of get a window on somebody's world, and I can see
Yeah.
all the music books, guitars. Yes, it's great. So how long have you had that studio up?
Oh, I think I moved into this room about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can remember seeing some things you posted up as you were doing it, as for if I can remember rightly.
Yeah, this used to be my son's bedroom, so it needed quite a bit of reworking to
Yeah,
turn it into a studio.
yeah. That's a marking of time, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Children's
Yes,
bedroom
yes.
suddenly
Having
becomes something else.
grown-up sons. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one very well.
Yeah.
So anyway, my first, my traditional first question, Pete. What do
Hmm.
you do? Obviously, we've let the cat out of the bag, but what do you do?
Um, Well, for a living, I teach music, mainly the guitar, the ukulele, the bass guitar. Um, but I have various sidelines as well. I mean, pre-COVID, I had a fairly healthy live performance career. Um, Also recording as well. I do remote recording sessions for people, overdub guitar solos onto their recordings and so forth. I I do a fair bit of recording here at home as well. I have this. This is only one of my two studios. I have another studio which used to be the garage, the detached garage at the bottom of the garden. But many years ago, I had that converted so that I could use that as a recording studio as well. So if I need to record a whole band with a drum kit and so forth, that takes place down there. Um, and then overdubs I tend to do up here because it's a lot more comfortable.
Hmm, that's really good. So you've got a lot of things going on there, haven't you? Actually.
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit.
So let's pick up the story from the beginning.
Okay.
How did you get interested in music? Earliest memories.
Right, yes, okay. I always loved music. One of my first memories is trying to operate the family. I think they were called radiograms in
They
those
were.
cases. It was a beautiful piece of furniture with valve amplification inside it. It had a turntable record player, stereo speakers, which was lovely in at the time, because this would have been the early 1960s, so stereo was fairly new. Um, yeah, it had a radio, and we had a bunch of records. I remember things like Let's Twist Again, one of my earliest memories, and also I love listening to the radio. I remember listening to people like Little Richard.
Hmm.
That must have been a re-release, come to think of it, because a few years before I was born, he'd given it all up and become a preacher. So they must have re-released Good Golly Miss Molly or something like that, or Long Tall Sally, to keep his record selling, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was always a fan of music, and then when I was 12, we were on the annual family holiday in Spain, Benidorm actually, very popular holiday location in 1972, and we were on our way from the hotel to the beach, and there are always various tourist trap shops that in Benidorm they seem to sell things like sombreros, the big wide brimmed hat, and those are bottles for vinegar and olive oil, and guitars.
Yes.
So
Oh,
they have guitars hanging up as well. Some of these shops, and completely out of the blue and without warning, my mother said to me, "Do you want a guitar?" And without hardly even thinking, I said, "Yeah, yes, please, yeah." Um, so I went home with a Spanish guitar. Um, Before flying back to London, I was trying to figure the thing out and over tightened one of the strings because I had no idea about tuning or anything, of course. And I broke a string. So the first thing I had to do with the guitar when I got back home was go to my local musical instrument shop and buy a new string for it. And I took the opportunity to buy a book as well, which was something like Folk Guitar for Beginners, I think it was. So, but also my father actually showed me my first three chords, which were D, G, and A7.
all right.
But ironically, these were the only chords he himself knew because just as he was starting his own journey of learning to play the guitar, he had an accident at work and lost the use of a couple of his fingers, and that was the end of his guitar playing.
Right.
But luckily, he remembered enough to be able to show me my first three chords and how to play simple Maltese folk music.
Right.
So that's how it all began for me. I could go on and on and on, but
No, that's really good. I
let's
like.
let you ask some questions.
Yeah. No. No. It's good. I like this sort of the beginning stories
Mm.
because it actually tells you quite a lot about what's going on. Because obviously your father, would have been probably quite keen for you to learn.
Yes, he was because he had been a singer back in the old country, Malta. Um, and I always remember when we went to Malta when I was, I think I would have been about 14. The band that he used to sing with, um, way back in the, I guess it would have been the 1940s, just after the war, was still there and still playing. They were doing
Right.
an open air show in one of the big squares in Valletta, the capital
Yeah.
city.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that.
So yeah, I was quite impressed by that. Yeah, because my father didn't say much. He was very quiet, taciturn sort of individual. But every now and then when I had the guitar out there, and he'd sing a bit. Usually in Italian. He loved the old Italian romantic ballads.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a positive sort of role model for you.
Yes.
You know. So okay. So you've got this guitar which you've now repaired, and you've got your first three chords,
Yeah.
and also this book.
Yes.
So
I
what?
wish I still had it actually. I normally keep things. I'm a terrible hoarder, but
Oh,
that is one book I don't have for some reason.
right. So you obviously start playing, and did you have some friends who played, or?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So, I was at school with a certain Tony Skinner.
Ah,
He was an exact contemporary of mine. He was in the
right.
same year. We weren't in the same classes,
No.
but we were in the same year. Now, at our school, and I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with this experience that are musicians. Um, you had the guys that were into football and sports and your rugby and cricket and all these things, and you had the other guys who are the bookish type of people who are more about reading and music and talking about music and playing music and so forth. And guess which team I belong to. And so did Tony. So despite us not being in the same class at lunchtime, lunch breaks, and so forth, and we would get together and chat about things, about what current pop music we liked. For example, I was one of the millions, I guess, who was very, very taken with David Bowie on Top of the Pops doing Starman.
Yeah.
And I can remember even then thinking, really identifying with that, and thinking, I'm not sure I see myself being, the guy singing with the orange hair and pointing his finger into the camera lens and so forth, but the guy next to him playing that wonderful sanded down Les Paul. Yeah, I could probably do that. And that, of course, was Mick Ronson, who was
Yeah.
one of my early
Yeah.
guitar heroes.
Great player.
Yeah, so myself and Tony and various other friends would rehash Top of the Pops from last night, and also Monty Python and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very popular at the
Yeah,
time.
so they all went with the territory, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we ended up forming a band together
Mm.
because a friend of mine who was in the same class as me, he got bequeathed a drum kit. I think an uncle of his had passed away, and he had left a drum kit, and my friend Andrew started playing the drums, went to drum lessons, and I was learning to play the guitar at the time, so we kind of all learnt together. Tony Skinner, he was an old hand. He'd already been playing 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Um, so yes, we formed a band together. We found a bass player, which was a sort of family friend of our drummer, um, and yeah, spent every Saturday afternoon for the next couple of years
Yeah.
rehearsing, even starting to write songs. But mainly it was covers. It was things like Deep Purple and Status
Yeah,
Quo
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
those things.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. So yeah, we started playing a few gigs, and I discovered that I loved it. I love performance. To this day, I love being on stage.
Mm.
That's where I feel at my most comfortable.
Mm. Interesting stuff, isn't it?
Mm,
That story of the group of people who meet like that,
yeah.
kids, friends at school. I mean, that is one of those sort of genesis of a band type thing, you know. Um, Certainly, I had the same experience, exactly the same experience as a kid.
Yeah.
For me, it was literally a load of guys sitting in somebody's house listening to music, and somebody who was already ahead of the game because he played piano said we
Mm,
should start a band, and it was
yeah.
like, and then it was you nominated what you were going to be, and then you just went bananas at just trying to learn what this was,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's fun, isn't it? And then you ended
Mm,
up with actually a bunch of really good musicians at the end, a period
yeah.
of a couple of years, and you think, well, that's not the sort of trajectory that you sort of see now.
No.
It's sort of a bit strange, isn't it? Because you had to do the hard work yourself, and you had to find the stuff out for yourself or work it out off the record or whatever.
Yeah, and also I feel sorry for the teenagers of today, because I had it easy relatively in learning the guitar, because there was literally nothing else to do in the
Mhm.
1970s. There were what, three channels on the TV, and let's face it, the only things worth watching were things like Thursday night was great, wasn't it? Tomorrow's World, and then Top of the
Top
Pops,
of the pops.
and that's it. That was pretty much my TV for the entire week. So there
Yeah,
wouldn't be that distraction. Obviously, there was no internet.
no.
I wasn't that into sports, so I was that kid that would spend 4 hours of an evening practicing the guitar, and until my fingertips bled. And the poor young guitar students of today are struggling just to fit in all the homework.
Yes.
let
Yes.
alone
That's a very good
anything
point
else.
because you think, well, you obviously did homework, but I can't
Yeah.
remember much about it.
I was very lazy with homework. I would get, I would have to hand in an essay on a Monday morning, and you'd think that I would either do it on Friday evening or Saturday
No.
morning or something, but no, I would be playing the guitar, and then I'd panic at Sunday evening, think, oh goodness, I haven't even started that essay. So I would set an alarm and get up at what I would in those days think of as a ridiculously early time to get up, which was just only 6. I mean, today that's nothing, isn't it? And I would get up at 6 and I would write my essay and then go to school with that. So it was guitar that took priority for me, but I did really well at school. I don't know. I found all of that academic side of things fairly easy, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I just feel for the young people of today that they have so many demands on their time and also so many distractions as well. Plus, I think um, the role of parents has changed.
Yeah.
My parents' generation had a very hands-off approach
Yeah.
to raising teenagers. They kind of left. I mean, they set some boundaries
Yeah.
certainly, but they pretty much left us to get on with it.
Yes.
Um, Whereas today, parents are very involved in every single detail of their children's lives. Plus, I get the impression that they feel that they've personally failed as parents if they don't expose their children to absolutely every opportunity there is going. So typically, they'd sign their kids up for guitar classes, but then also there'll be various after school clubs and before school clubs.
Yeah.
There'll be, I don't know, chess, ballet, all kinds of dancing. Uh, Lots of different sports. The number of times we have to suspend a particular student's lessons because they've broken their finger
Yes.
playing, I don't know, volleyball or something.
Cricket's another one that for breaking
Yeah,
through. Yeah.
cricket, all of these different sports, and yeah, fair play to them. That's how parenting gets done now. But then you think, well, how is this young person going to learn to play the guitar when they can literally only practice it in stolen minutes here and there throughout
Exactly.
the week?
Exactly. Because it's like, as you say, their time is sort of scripted on their behalf.
Yeah.
Even their this gets me actually, I must say,
Mm.
the quality time that parents have with children. You think, what is that about? If you
Yeah.
have to do that, that's not right. It really isn't
No.
right. And I don't know how many children you had, Pete, or you
2.
you got two, but I had four.
Mm.
And you get to a point, certainly beyond two, where you can't you
Yeah.
can't do that.
With the
They,
best will in
they
the
start
world.
looking after one another, and
Yes.
and in actual fact, they do much better
Mm.
without your intervention. That they can do it themselves, build their own characters, communication between their brothers and sisters, blah blah blah, and so on. And it makes a lot of difference. And I've seen that a lot in bigger families.
Yeah.
And you sort of think, well, we've really lost the plot with all of this stuff. And
Mm.
I won't get on my high horse about education yet. I'm sure this is just going to come up, but it's
I'm sure we'll get there.
yeah, I'm sure we will. But it's
Yeah.
that sort of thing, like we've overthought everything.
Mm.
And as you say, how can they possibly learn a musical instrument when it's like, you've got to say to them, well, you've got to have some strategies here. Stick your guitar in the way on the bed,
Yes.
so that you have to pick the damn thing up. So play then. You think, well,
Yeah.
that's a bit, you know, all right. So
Mm.
um, So yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So going back to your childhood with this, you were able, you had a lot of freedom really to do that
Yeah,
stuff. School wasn't really an issue, but you did all right. Same with me. I can't
mm,
remember much about it, but I seem to be okay.
yeah,
Um, and then you're obviously gigging and stuff at school.
yeah,
And presumably you're working along with Tony
yes.
stuff, right? Tony Skinner. Um, so would what sort of gigs were you doing at this time?
Oh, well, anything we were offered really.
Yeah.
Youth clubs. Um, yeah, sometimes we would get a gig off the back of someone else's gig. Like our drummer was also in another band. He was in, would you believe, an Irish Cayley band.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, because yeah, Andrew, our drummer, he is half Irish. His father was Irish. So at that time, there was a very healthy, thriving network of Irish gigs. I myself did very well in that a few years later after leaving school. So he played with this Cayley trio, and he said, "I'll do it if you'll let my other band be your support act
Good.
when you play such
Yeah.
and such a gig." So that was our first time on stage, in fact,
Right.
playing warm up for this Irish band at um, one of those social clubs on the side of a Catholic church, of
Yeah.
which there were many in those days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because along with those was the Working Man's Club, which was always a good place to get gigs.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we got to play in that situation as well, and we would hustle for gigs. Our bass player was very good at that. He got us in to some of the local youth clubs, um, and some of us were also playing in other bands on the side as well, and they would have their own connections. So with all of that going on together, we got to play live quite a bit.
Mm. So
Yeah,
did you have
and
another
and
band at
eventually
this
to
time?
start earning money from it as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you start getting to that point where you had, you earned a bit of money and
Well, the real regular money didn't start until just after I'd left school. Because yes, I'm sure you remember the weekly music papers of the day: Sounds, New
yeah,
Musical Express, Enemy, and Melody Maker. And of course, Melody Maker was the one that all the musicians bought because of the fantastic classified advertising section at
yeah,
the back. So as soon as I left school, I looked in Melody Maker, and there was a box ad that said a lead guitarist wanted for busy working country band. Um, Now, let me say straight away that at that time, although this was to change, I was by no means a country guitar player. I didn't even like the stuff at the time.
yeah.
But the thing that attracted me was busy and working.
Working, yes, yes.
So the audition turned out to be a gig.
Oh,
That's how this group operated. You would, and it was a pub in Blackheath, I think. I seem
right.
to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I amazingly I got the job, and to this day I don't understand how they took me on because one of their previous lead guitar players was Adrian Legg.
Good God, really? That's a name
Exactly.
from the past.
Exactly. It's from the sublime to the ridiculous in my case, So I quickly had to learn my chops. The leader of the band gave me a cassette tape with some of the typical sort of Irish country music because they were Irish country stars in those days.
Right.
So I learned a few licks from that, and and there was never a single rehearsal. The entire thing was an improvisation from start to finish. if I was lucky, he'd tell me what key we were going to play the next song in. So it was sink or swim. It really
No,
was
that's
the
good, isn't it?
baptism of fire. But
Yeah,
we
'cause-
played 4 nights a week,
yeah, but that's
and I was on really good money. I was getting paid more, much more, for that than I was for my day job.
so. What was your day job?
Ah, yeah, okay. So I had a very long, successful career as what used to be called a computer programmer. And then they started calling it software developer, and
Right,
now they use the rather dismissive term coder, which I'm very much against. But
right,
there you are. I'm glad to be out of it now. I've
yeah,
retired from that
yeah,
for many years now.
yeah.
So yeah, I was always working in an office programming computers during the day and doing gigs and teaching guitar at night.
Right.
Yeah, because teaching started even before I'd left school.
Well, it's funny. You're same for me.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I was 17, I'd been playing 5 years seriously. And of course, at that age, you think you know it all,
Yeah,
don't you? So I thought, well, I could at the very least help some beginners on, and that's how it all started for me.
yeah,
And yes, okay, yeah, things are coming back to me now. This is how it began. So in the long summer holiday break, the 6 weeks off that we used to get from school every summer, uh, Tony Skinner and myself, we would get jobs. So one year we went along to a temp agency in Streatham, South London, and we both signed up, and we both got these very physically intense jobs, like office furniture removals,
God.
and yeah, I was a driver's mate for a fizzy drink firm, so I was helping the lorry driver, and I would be the poor guy at the bottom of the ladder in the basement underneath the pub, and he'd be throwing a massive crate of lemonade at me, and I'd be the one catching it there and stacking it and getting back to the ladder before he threw the next one at me. It was very, very physically intense, hard labour.
Yeah.
So the following summer, Tony and I got together at the beginning and said that was really hard. I mean, the money was good, but that was really hard work last year. What can we do this year that isn't going to be quite as demanding? And I can't remember which of us said, well, we can both play guitar pretty well. Let's teach guitar. Because in those days, I'm sure you'll remember, every newsagent
Yeah.
had a window with postcard adverts in there, and there would be guitar lessons, blah blah blah. But in those days, guitar teachers didn't have a great reputation, rightly so, because a lot of these guys were very flaky hippies with no sense of business, and you'd arrange to go and have lessons at this guy's place, and he'd be out, and it was all very, very disorganized in those days. And I don't know, for some reason, Tony and I thought we can do better than that. We can be more organized and more businesslike about it. So we both, that summer, started giving guitar lessons.
Mm.
And I've kept it up on and off ever since. And of course, well, with Tony, the rest is history, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. See, when I was sort of learning, sort of similar time to you,
Yeah,
there weren't any. I couldn't find any guitar teachers. I had to go from Dartford,
yeah.
Gravesend, to find a classical guitar teacher. That's catch a trick.
Ah,
So that's a heck of
classical
work.
ones were especially hard to find.
Yeah, but there wasn't anybody else
Yeah.
that you could sort of go like, this guy's worth going to. I mean, there
Mm.
were obviously other people who could sort of hanging around who could play, probably. I don't know, but I didn't know where they were, and
Yeah.
so it's interesting you saying that, because I think that's sort of true. There was no, there were. It wasn't like if you wanted to learn violin or piano or something like that, and there'd be someone
Mm.
who was, a trained musician. But there was also nothing to sort of make it coherent. with
Yes, no
contemporary guitar.
structure.
And obviously, with Tony's work, with the RGT, that
Mm.
actually gave it a coherence.
Yes.
That, okay, by the time that had arrived, obviously the likes of you, me, and Tony, and others, Chaz, and all the rest of it, we already had our own teaching practices and stuff like that. But we'd learned by trial and error, really.
Yes.
But people starting off, that gave them something that almost gave them some sort of authority
Yeah.
about how things worked. Um, so that's interesting. So um, I'm interested in now some of the other bands that you started playing with, because there's some bands that
Okay.
you've been with for a long time.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So the first band I was in that achieved any kind of notoriety was called the Fast Set, and now we're yeah yeah we've joined together under a different name in 1979 and 1980 1981. So this was the time of what was called at first futurism in music, and eventually mutated into new romanticism,
Right.
I suppose, although
Yeah.
we were only loosely associated with that. But yeah, it was all about experimentation and electronics. I was always a dab hand with a soldering iron. And of course, in those days, you needed one if you were going to get a drum machine to talk to a sequencer.
All right.
And
Yeah.
so I was good at building little black boxes that enabled
Oh,
that kind of thing to happen.
oh. Well,
Um,
this is a skill
so
that you've sort of passed over the fact that you were good with this sort of stuff,
um,
or did you just learn
yeah,
as you went?
I was one of those kids that used to buy those little Bernard Babani books about how to make things from, resistors and capacitors and things. I
Because there
was
was a
never any
really
good
cool
at it,
shop
but
in
sorry.
there was a really cool shop in, where was it? It was near Blackheath, that you could just go in and buy resistors.
Yes, yes. I used to go there.
Yeah, so
I
did
used to
I.
know all of those shops. Blackheath, that was a fantastic shop for electronic components.
Yes.
There was another little oasis of electronic components. I think there were two shops in Thornton Heath.
All right.
So yeah, I would, go to all of these shops to get my components, and I would buy any book that came out about
All right.
building things for music. Craig Anderton had a book, Electronic Projects for Musicians.
Right.
So I remember buying that and building a little headphone amplifier and
Oh,
a metronome and these little effects pedals
yeah.
that in my
Yeah, because
case usually worked for about 3 weeks.
you could also get these kits, couldn't you? That I bought I can't remember, if it was a phaser flange or something like that.
Yeah,
It just came as a kit. As long as you had a soldering iron, whatever, and you weren't stupid, you could put it together. And this thing was good. You could get a really good quality pedal quite cheaply if you built it.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
yeah.
funny, isn't it? Because that sort of make do, mend, and all the rest of it, and adapt. That was
That's
definitely
right.
something that
Yes.
came out of that. Certainly the punk thing of,
Yeah.
you just do it type of thing. And then obviously what you're talking about, the wave that follows, the sort of new wave, whatever,
Yeah.
still had that stuff, because we were making our own clothes at this point,
Ah, right. Yeah.
because it was that sort of attitude of, what are you going
Yeah.
to wear? And I don't know,
Yeah.
what fancy wearing. And then we went and bought the material, made the
Yeah.
clothes, made our own t-shirts.
Mm. Yeah. So coming back to the fast set,
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
we were a trio. We had a singer, a sort of tape operator and synthesizer player,
Right.
David Knight, very good friend of mine, and I was on guitar and synthesizer, depending on the song. So mostly no drummer. I mean, we had a reel-to-reel tape recorder playing backing tracks that we'd recorded at home.
Oh, okay.
So we had drum machine or whatever kind of artificial percussion on that. We were big fans of Kraftwerk, Yellow Magic Orchestra, Can. Also, obviously the great glam rock people,
Yeah,
David Bowie,
Roxy
Roxy
music.
Music,
Yeah.
um, all of that kind of thing. And our contemporaries were people like the Human League and Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark,
Yeah.
and especially Soft Cell, Depeche Mode, Blancmange, and somehow we ended up on a compilation album with a lot of these people and
Oh,
doing gigs with them as well.
right.
And that was called Some Bizarre Album,
Right.
and that was a record label. Well, still is Some Bizarre Label,
Hmm.
run by this character Steve-O, who became Soft Cell's manager
Yeah.
and signed them to Phonogram and so forth. And for a brief moment, there was a possibility that we would go
Yeah.
the same way, but it didn't work
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's always a little bit of a brush with fame, isn't there?
yeah,
Uh,
15 minutes or so. But,
yeah.
I remember playing the Lyceum, one of the biggest theatres in London with all of my mates from school down there in the audience. And I thought, wow, yes, this is pretty good. I want some more of this.
Yeah.
That was the first big gig I ever played. Where I got to learn what roadies were and the rider and so forth. And this was all a new world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, we got the job of being opening act on a nationwide tour. I think the headliners were a band called Classics Nouveau that
Oh,
did a
right.
few
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
in the charts.
Yeah. Yeah. Classics Nouveau. Yeah.
And yeah, one of the other bands was was it Theatre of Hate or Spear
Yeah.
of Destiny? One of Kirk Brandon's bands. I
Yeah.
forget now which particular one. So yeah, we were going up and down the country with these
Probably Theatre
people.
of Hate, I would have guessed.
Yeah, so playing up north in Sheffield and Leeds, and this was on the tightest possible budget
Yeah.
as well. So I remember on going up to play the Warehouse Club in Leeds. We went up on the bus from Victoria Station. Um, I had a guitar in one hand and a bag in the other with various effects pedals. And a little practice amp, like a tiny little 5 watt thing. And David had a suitcase with his TIAC reel to reel tape recorder in one hand and a Roland synthesizer in the other. That was our luggage. We were a duo at this stage. And I had taken over as the singer, unbelievably, because I've never really seen myself as a singer. But hey, someone had to do it,
Yeah.
so I drew the short straw. So yeah, we went up on the bus, did this gig. Yeah, we were supporting a band called the Monochrome Set,
Right.
who were quite big on the indie scene at that time. I remember their guitar player we were chatting with after the show. He had been in Adam and the Ants,
Right.
and we were getting on, in a friendly sort of way. And he said, "Oh, which hotel are you booked into tonight?" And I didn't have the heart to tell him we didn't have a hotel. We couldn't afford one, so we ended up because our bus didn't leave until 6 the following morning. So we literally had to just bum around Leeds for the whole night until our bus left. So we were almost arrested as vagrants at the train station. The train station staff kept moving us on. We were trying to get some sleep on one of the benches there, and they tried to get us to leave, but we had literally nowhere to go. So we were sort of half sleeping rough and half wandering around Leeds, and then eventually we got the bus back to Victoria Station and arrived back
Flex.
home absolutely shattered.
I bet.
So
Yeah.
so we were right at the bottom end of the music industry.
Mm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Um, So after that band, I gradually got back into, my first love musically. I guess that I was any good at was blues. So yeah, I've been a sort of minor thing on the blues scene ever since. I guess in various bands. Um, my favourite band from all of that side of my career is definitely Shout Sister Shout.
Yeah,
We used to play at a pub called the Station Tavern, which was a very well known venue up in the Ladbroke Grove sort of area.
yeah,
And they had live music for free every night of the week, and the absolute top names on the scene were all playing there. And we were the resident band on Friday nights, and the place was rammed every time we played there. And there was it was a scene. It was a cult. Friendship. Lifelong friendships were made there. And I'm still in touch with all of those guys from that band. In fact, our singer Chad, I still work with him regularly today. In fact, my very next gig is with him.
right.
So,
So what period of time are we talking about now, Pete?
right, Station Tavern started there in '89, and we were still there in '91.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and with that band, of course, I had the opportunity to go over and play in Europe, which was lovely. Like the Lugano Festival in Switzerland. That was an amazing weekend. We got to play in France, Belgium. Uh, just amazing to have that experience as a young musician.
Mm, mm,
And yeah, I had quite a bit of that, over the last 5 years with another artist I work with who's called Sister Cookie, and we did so many gigs in Spain and France and so forth. And yeah, unfortunately, all of that's gone now, hasn't it? So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
what with one thing and another.
we'll get to this bit, I'm sure, in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, at this point in time, are you still working? Because you're traveling about a bit. Are you still working in a,
Um,
let's put it, a proper job?
yeah, kind of. I mean, I had long periods where I was a freelancer
Yeah.
as a software developer.
Okay. So
And with
that's
that, you can, you're self-employed. You can kind of make your own hours
mm,
up to a point.
mm,
Obviously, there were things that needed to be delivered, but so long as they were, there was a good degree of flexibility
mm,
involved in that.
mm.
Um, and if not, then well, there was always annual leave you could dig into, wasn't there? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, somehow you just made it work.
Yeah. Yeah. So so I'm sort of interested in this. So what would you say then is the next sort of, when you sort of go, yeah, this was a pivotal moment now that this happened, and then I did this. What?
Um, oh well, yeah, sort of contemporaneous with Shout Sister Shout. I also still had a finger in the indie music sort of scene, which I had been involved with the fast set. Um, yeah, friends of mine kept asking me to play on their records. So I remember playing on a single for a band called The Third Eye, and that was as a bass player. So every now and then I get a job as a bass player, which is uh, quite welcome because you get to see the band from a different perspective, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
I like playing bass. Um, so yeah, that single by The Third Eye, yeah, we never actually played a gig. It was literally just that single, and that became a very sought after collector's item, and sort of exchanges hands on eBay for ridiculous money, or it was until it got re-released on CD recently as part of a compilation.
Right.
So there were things like that. Now, my partner in the far set, a very good friend of mine called David Knight, he started working with an indie artist called Danielle Dax.
Mhm.
And she was, you know, always in the music papers, being interviewed by Sounds and Enemy and all that. And she was touring and doing an awful lot. And she started by playing all the instruments herself, um, and gradually wanted, you know, I guess a more experienced guitar player, shall we say, to play on her records. So for a while that was me. And again, I never got to go on their tours. There was always someone else to do that part, but I would be the guy in the studio overdubbing the guitar solos. And I played bass, rhythm guitar, lead guitar, even sitar
All
on
right.
one record. Yeah. So her records did incredibly well. Yeah, one single which was called Cat House even got played quite a bit on Channel 4. Channel 4 had an indie chart show at the time, and the video for that single kept getting played on that. So I would be getting royalty payments from the Musicians Union for those TV appearances, which was very nice for a while. Um, yeah, eventually Danielle got signed by a major. She got signed to Sire Records, the same label that Madonna was on. So there we were now in a big London recording studio being produced by Stephen Street,
No.
who's yeah the same guy that produced the Smiths and
Mm.
Blur and all kinds of famous and notorious people.
No.
Um, because yeah, I always especially loved recording, working in the recording studio. I got my first recording job way back when I was 15, which is a total fluke. But yeah, I was given the job of writing and recording a suite of background music for a. It was a corporate project. It was actually for NatWest Bank. It was a cassette tape which went out to their branches, which was part of the training package for their counter staff. So I did the background music for that. I remember Noel Edmonds, the famous BBC personality, did the narration for it. Never met him though. He did his stuff in a
No.
different place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my first time in a recording studio. Sorry, the timeline's jumping about a
No,
little
no,
bit
it's
at
okay.
this
It's all
point, but
right.
this is way back when I was 15, 1975. So it
It's
was
all right.
a tiny little 8-track studio, um, and I was just blown away by the sound of my guitar coming back through the studio monitors,
Yeah.
and I just fell in love with recording right there and then.
Wow. So, it, do you think that you've got lots of interesting connections there?
Yeah,
How generally did they happen? What was it that because
yeah. Um, Friends, the grapevine, the musical, the connections that you make. Um, yeah, you play in one band, you get on well with one of the members of that band, and then a couple of years later they remember, oh, Pete would be the ideal guy for that.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
his
yeah,
phone
right.
number? Um, that's how it would happen in those days. And in those days, you just hope that you still had a current phone number for someone.
Yes,
But if you didn't, you might know someone else
yeah,
that might know someone else that had a current phone number.
yes,
Of course, now, um, for the last, or how long has it been? 10 years or something? Facebook is just amazing for getting musical work. I've made so many connections through being an active participant in Facebook that it's unbelievable.
mm,
And with the internet now, and with the visibility of me as a person and my teaching business and so forth on the internet, I'm very easy to find, and that in itself gets me a lot of work.
mm.
So these are remote recording projects that
Yes.
I get asked to take part in.
Yes.
So these days, you just need to make yourself as visible as possible.
Yeah, but you
And
see, the
that's
thing is, don't you think, Pete, that that is, although it's changed its outward appearance,
yeah,
what's really going on is what you've always done, which is that you're actually really good. Well, let's use that word networking. I hate the
networking.
word.
Yes,
Making friends, basically, right?
yeah,
Because obviously in colleges now they teach networking. It's ridiculous.
mm,
Instead of sort of saying,
mm,
well, just get on with people, go out,
yeah,
have a beer. Well, as long as you can, of course, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
Make friendships and keep contact.
That's right. And
Which is
do
what you've been
favors
doing,
for
obviously.
people, and you'll get repaid 10 times over. For
Yes.
example, an album I've been working on recently with Katie Bradley, who's highly regarded British blues singer. She Facebook messaged me out of the blue one day and said, "Pete, shall we record an album together?" Yes, please. But obviously, there's no label behind this. There's no budget.
Yeah.
So, and we wanted to do it properly with a band, with musicians. Rather than dragging files around, on software, because it's blues. It needs to be organic sounding, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But luckily, both of us have a network of musician friends we've worked with on and off for many years that are able to work with us on the basis of, okay, if you come and play drums for me on this album, I will play guitar on whatever projects you want me to in the future.
Yes.
So we have an exchange of session work like that, which doesn't cost anyone anything. Um, our profiles get we work for credit basically, so
Yeah.
we get credited on each other's records, and our names get noticed through that, and then we're likely to get other opportunities, some of which may or may not pay, so it all
Yeah.
works out positively in the end.
You see, I've just done a blog about this very thing about it's returning to, in this situation particularly, you have to sort of start thinking about how you can trade your skills for other people's skills,
Yes.
which is what you're saying, really. There's
Mm.
no monetary
No.
exchange here. It's it's the favors thing because that's what we would have done at the very beginning because nobody had any money. You go back to your beginnings, same with me. Nobody had two pennies to rub together unless it was beg, steal, or borrow type of thing.
Mm.
But of course, it made you very resourceful. And I think obviously, our generation of musicians and the musicians before that were incredibly resourceful because that's all you had as
Yes.
anything was your own resource. And of course, now again, this is another thing which I think a lot of the kids that learn over the last maybe 10, 15 years, that's not the way it's happened because you could get the thing, instead of trying to work out how you're going to get the thing,
Yeah.
how you were going to get that sound that you'd heard over here, well, we're going to have to build something to do that.
Yes.
The lighting rig. Yeah, we're going to have
Yeah.
to build one. Let's get a load of old junk, bits of a roof rack of somebody's, car and make that into the sort of thing, but make some boxes and stick some lights in it. And, you might be able to
Yeah,
work
like a
build a sound alike.
speaker cabinet, a speaker cabinet for the bass player that was the size of a wardrobe, things
Exactly.
like that. And you then need a van to transport it to the gig.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And going back to your radiogram story at the beginning, I had a couple
Mm.
of friends who wired up the guitar so that they could play it through the radiogram.
Exactly, that was common practice in the
It
70s.
was.
In fact, when I went to Tony Skinner's place over
Yeah,
in Tulse Hill,
yeah,
that's exactly what his first amplifier
yeah,
was. It was an old valve radio,
yeah,
and somehow with these things you could just wire in a jack socket and plug your guitar into it, and I tell you what, it sounded fantastic.
I bet it did
It
because it had,
sounded like
right.
an old Fender
I
Deluxe.
was going to say to you, it probably sounded like a Fender Champ or something like that because really
Yeah,
that's all it was a little valve amp. You know,
yeah,
that was it. There's nothing you know
yeah. And
special.
of course, at the time, we didn't know what we had. We would think, oh yeah, sorry about this terrible amp. I'm saving up for a proper one.
Yeah,
Which would ending up, which would have ended up being this, rubbish, cheap
yeah,
transistor
yeah,
amp that sounded terrible by comparison,
yeah,
but was
exactly.
at least loud enough to play at a gig.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, isn't it? Because so
Yeah,
so the resourcefulness thing, I think, is a really really good that you're saying about this because I think it's something we got to get back to in the way that from my point of view, it's how you educate the kids that you've got, well, kids, people that you're teaching guitar.
yeah,
That sort of thing of you know you might get information from something, but you've got to make it your own. And then you've got
yes,
to, what is it that you can hear in your head sound wise? Not just because you heard this guy over there do it. It's like, now, what is it that you're hearing? How do you do
mm,
that? And you've got to create that. It's not a case of going out and buying that bit of kit and this bit of kit. It's no, what is it that you can do on the cheap that can do that? And I think this period of time, because it's knocked a lot of people for six, we've really got to think about how we deal with this, you know,
yeah,
and it's a challenge, and it's a challenge, and it's not made better by politicians.
oh, don't get me started.
No, and I won't get started either because I think we read off the same page on this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But it's very much this sort of thing. That, look, they're not going to be able to fix any of that stuff, and if anything, whatever they do is going to be
mm,
evidenced by the sort of nonsense, you know, campaigns of retraining and all that nonsense. We've got to come out with a way of how we rethink what we do. Um, and and okay, you were saying in the past there were lots of places to play, but not because
yeah,
they were designed for bands to play. They just were places that needed some sort of entertainment, and you went in and you've shoehorned your stuff in there,
yeah,
um, and we need to think about things that way, you know,
mm,
creatively. So anyway, you had a lot of live stuff, a lot of gigs. You were doing a lot of stuff, weren't you, until it all sort of shut
yeah,
down. Um, Presumably, you're making the most of doing recordings and stuff like that at the moment. I'm assuming
yes,
because it's
yes,
a perfect opportunity to do so.
yeah.
What do you see as what's on your map? Let's put it that way for the
Mm.
for bands and what you seeing.
Right. Okay. The roadmap at the moment. Well, I'm in a band called Chad Strentz and the Chad-illacs. Chad is one of my oldest musician friends, and he was singer in Shout Sister Shout.
Yeah.
And we're still working together all these years later. So I'd really like to work towards getting an album out with those guys. It's complicated though because the de facto leader of the band is our drummer Mike Thorne. It was the whole project was his idea, to
Mm.
his credit. Mike's an incredibly busy guy, however, because his day job is owner and operator of a fantastic recording studio in Kent called Rimshot Productions.
Oh, Rimshot. Yeah, yeah.
Of
Okay.
course, yeah, yeah. So,
Right.
obviously everything has to fit in and around Mike's availability with
Right.
that. But that's one stream. Uh, so also I work with Sister Cookie's band. Cookie is an amazing personality, singer, songwriter, got the most incredible stage presence of anyone I've ever worked with. And, as I said, we had a thriving, following over in Europe, particularly in Spain, until all this situation happened. We recorded an album. It's in the can. It's all finished. I mastered it a few months ago. Um, we won Record Store Day Best Unsigned Artist, and the prize for that is that they're going to press up our album on vinyl, 500 initial copies. So that's happening at the moment. At the same time, Cookie is on the verge of being signed to management. Uh, so all that's happening, regardless of my involvement in it. But I have high hopes for
Yeah.
that. And also I have this album which is in the final stages of recording with Katie Bradley, and lots of very fine musician friends who have kindly helped us out on this one. Um, and I'm hoping that if all goes well, that will be completed and mastered by Christmas, maybe even sooner actually. And then we'll have to see about what we can do in terms of promoting it, because we were going to get together with several of the guys that had helped us record it, form a band to go up and down the blues venues of the country and promote it. But the opportunities to do that are minimal at the moment, so we're going to have to be creative in terms of how we promote that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting challenge. I'm sure something's going to come out of this. I don't know what it is,
Mm.
but because well, there's a lot of people with their minds on how it's going to be done. So somebody will come up with an idea that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see. As I say, I don't know. I have a lot of contacts with people abroad, and you look at how other places are doing things, and to be honest, nobody's really got a real sort of clear picture on it. I mean, some places are doing it slightly better than we are from the point of view of
Mm.
there's still music happening and stuff like that. There's a guy in Germany who seems to be okay. But yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting thing. But you're obviously busy with your teaching, aren't you?
Oh, very busy. Yes, of course. It's all Zoom now. It's
Yes.
all remote and online, and I've had to make a huge shift and adaptation of my working practices to accommodate that.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm really coming round to the idea. I almost prefer it now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm used to doing it. Of course, I was already doing it for quite a few years beforehand anyway, for clients in America and so forth. And in that, I was helped by one of those RGT seminars. Dr. Matt Warnock gave the Internet for Guitar Tutors
Yeah. Yeah.
seminar, and he introduced me and I guess a lot of other people to the idea of you can make a living by teaching online.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting
So
because I was ahead of the curve on this one.
yeah,
I was ill the year before, and I had to get
mm,
on teaching online, and it was like I'd already done a bit of this because of
mm,
like if you had bad weather and stuff like that, and there's kids in schools, you couldn't get in,
yeah,
and we were just doing whatever Skype or
mm,
originally it was Skype, and then whatever platform people could use, FaceTime or whatever, or even Messenger or whatever, and then
yeah.
obviously Zoom.
WhatsApp even.
Yeah, yeah, I've done
Yeah,
it all, but what, as you said, it's actually slightly different. And once you get your head around what it is that it's good for, you know, what this type of thing, communicating like this, is good for, and then understanding what face to face, and obviously face to face is great because there's lots of subtleties you can't get.
Yeah. Well, you can play together at the same time, can't you? So,
Yes, yes, but also you're picking up the nuances about people in the way you're interacting, which
yeah.
is actually quite difficult to
Mm,
do online. Um, so having a mix of things is really good,
mm.
actually. Having it so that, if there's a situation where somebody can't get to you for some reason, you can resort to doing an online lesson, which is brilliant, which is actually better than not having that there. And then for other people, it might be convenient for them to do it on Zoom and then occasionally come to see you.
Exactly. Yes. That one positive aspect to the COVID crisis is that we've proved that we can operate successfully like this, and we've also opened the eyes of a lot of our clients and potential clients that they can successfully learn how to play with remote teaching.
Yes,
A lot of the same people would have been completely skeptical about
yes,
this beforehand.
yes, I totally agree with you.
And at first, when the first lockdown happened in March, I lost a few people because they couldn't see themselves succeeding with this method of teaching. But then I started gaining new people, and now I've got as many clients as I ever had.
Do you know what I think it
Um,
is? Because I think that a lot of people had to do this sort of thing in their own work.
yes,
And I think that's what it is that made people go like, well, I have to do this for
that's
something.
it. Well, yeah,
I've got some client, I have to, I can't go and see them. I have to do
yeah.
it and I have to rethink that. So suddenly they're in, they're in the game as well,
Hmm.
instead of it being,
And they're seeing advantages now, like they're saving the 1 hour a week of travelling time and the inconvenience of finding a place to park that they used to have to. And sometimes people would be a few minutes late for a lesson because there were roadworks in the way. So all of those little inconveniences are gone now,
yes,
and you've got your 1 hour a week of lesson, and that's literally 1 hour out of your day instead of two.
yes, yes, that's
So,
right. Yeah.
so a lot of my clients are seeing the advantage and are saying, well, we want to carry on doing this even after this
And the
crisis
other
is.
interesting thing, of course, Pete, is your catchment area is
Yeah,
enormous.
exactly. Yes, yes.
It's anywhere as long as
Ev-
you can
yeah,
understand
the
how we
English
speak
speaking
English.
world.
Yes.
Well, I've been working on improving my Maltese, so that might
Well,
be another
actually, I
opportunity.
had a chat with somebody else about this, about teaching people from, from
Mm,
their own, okay, they live here,
yeah.
but they're
Oh,
all,
it's Malcolm
well,
Callous.
it is actually
Yeah,
Malcolm, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the fact that, expat communities, whatever,
yeah,
you've got, if you're teaching people from a Maltese community, or of course, as
yeah,
you said, it could be an Italian community, because obviously if you're from Malta, you can speak Italian as well, right? Because Maltese
yeah.
TV's
Because they
mostly
watch Italian TV. Yeah, they learn
exactly
Italian.
to their
Yeah.
detriment, I'm sure. But
Mm.
I've seen a bit of Italian TV. I know what that does to you.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but you get the sort of drift that you've got communities that think slightly. There's a slightly different sort of perspective on certain aspects.
mm.
When you're dealing with people, um, and they could appreciate the fact that you know where they're coming from in stuff. And
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of potential,
mm.
a lot of potential. Um, and the only, as I say, the only thing that we have to cross is this sort of thing about how we perform,
Yeah,
and how people get their heads around the fact that they're not going to be 20,000 people stuck in a field watching you play, type of thing, cheek by
yeah.
joint.
I've
Um,
actually done several gigs recently, and it's a very interesting experience. They've all been really, really good, really successful. Um, but obviously the size of the audience
Yes.
is of necessity limited.
Yeah.
The last one I did with Sister Cookie on Friday, the audience were all seated, and they all had to wear their masks because they were within 1 meter
Oh,
of each
okay.
other.
Right.
So obviously there's no dancing. They can't sing along with you. So it's literally like playing a concert in a concert hall with people sitting still there. But yeah, very very appreciative audiences. Everybody's loving the fact that they can go and see live music again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we need more of this,
Yes.
definitely. Um,
It's good to know that
Obviously
you're out there.
fitting in with the current restrictions.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. It's good to know that you're out there playing. Because I've just been doing all the other bits that I do, as you know. I've got a lot of
Yeah,
irons in the fire as always. Anyway, Pete, that was great chatting to you. Really good.
yeah,
And there's a lot of
me
stuff
too.
there for
Thanks.
people to sort of pick through with things. Now,
Mm,
I'll put all your details in the show notes, right?
okay.
Because whenever I listen to a podcast and people say how they can contact, I never can pick it up because I'm always either sitting in the car or doing something. So could you send me,
Yeah.
your contact details,
Yes.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
a little bit about, you got things coming up as well, and we'll stick all those up there and everything. All right.
All right. We'll do.
That's really
Yeah.
good. And it's lovely to see you and speak to you.
Yeah. You too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking well.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm still here.
Great.
And yeah, it's been an interesting period of time. So for me,
Mm,
but yeah, and but you're looking good. So
thanks.
it's good. All right then, mate.
All
We'll
right.
speak soon. All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Vic.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Just a big thank you to Pete for his time, and it's good talking to people that you've known for a while, who've also been involved in music for such a long time, and he's very optimistic about things, which is nice to see. Obviously, the live music scene, as we discussed, is going to change a bit, but we don't know where that's going to go. But obviously, when you've been involved in music for so long, you don't just sort of stop. You come up with other ideas and find a way forward. So to contact Pete, you can get through to his stuff on the show notes, and same for me with my Patreon and all the stuff that I'm doing with Blues Camp. So until next time, see you then.